What if I told you that your most trusted winter lure, the one you swear by, is actually the reason you're going home empty-handed? It sounds crazy, I know. We all have that one Old Faithful in our tackle box. But today, we're going to challenge that belief. We're going to explore the uncomfortable truth that your go-to lure might be dead in the water, and you just don't know it yet. I promise by the end of this video, you'll understand why what worked last year, or even last week, is failing you now. We will uncover the hidden reasons so many anglers are struggling, and it has nothing to do with luck. So let me ask you this right from the start. Do you believe a lure can simply stop working forever? Let me know your gut reaction in the comments below, and let's get into it. Every serious angler has a confidence bait. It's more than just a piece of metal or plastic. It's a symbol of past success. You remember the day it landed you your personal best walleye, or the time it turned a dead, frozen afternoon into a non-stop perch fest. This creates a powerful psychological loop. When the bite is tough, what do? You reach for what you trust. You tie on old reliable because your brain tells you it's the safest bet. This habit is built over years, sometimes decades. It becomes second nature. But here's the danger. That confidence can turn into a blind spot. You stop experimenting. You stop observing. You start blaming the weather, the time of day, or anything else, because you refuse to believe your favorite lure could ever be the problem. We're going to break that cycle today. First, let's define the problem clearly. What does it mean for a lure to stop working? It's not that the lure itself is broken. It still wiggles, it still flashes, it still does what it was designed to do. The change isn't with the lure, it's with the fish and their environment. Your lure has become ineffective. It's like telling the same joke to the same person 100 times. The first time it was funny. The 100th time, you get ignored. That's what's happening beneath the ice. The fish have heard your lure's joke too many times. Think about it. You're out on the ice, jigging that same spoon. The vexillar is blank. You move holes. Still nothing. You start to doubt yourself. But you never doubt the lure. That's the mental hurdle we need to get over. The lure is the first variable you should be questioning, not the last. So, what's the number one killer of a great lure? It's fishing pressure. This is the most significant factor, especially on popular, easy-to-access lakes. 10 years ago, maybe you and a few dozen other guys knew about a specific hot lure. Today, thanks to the internet, YouTube, and social media, a hot lure becomes common knowledge overnight. Suddenly, thousands of anglers on that same lake are dropping the exact same lure down their holes. They are using the same size, the same color, and the same action. The fish aren't stupid. They adapt. They learn to associate that specific flash, that specific rattle, with danger. A walleye or a big perch doesn't get old by being careless. They see that lure day in and day out, and it quickly becomes a signal to stay away, not to attack. Your secret weapon is no longer a secret. Let's put this into a real-world scenario. Picture a popular community fishing spot on a Saturday morning. You drill your hole, and you can see 20 other anglers within casting distance. You drop down your go-to lure, a chartreuse rattling spoon that has always produced. You start jigging. Now think about what the fish see. They don't just see your lure. They see a constant parade of chartreuse rattling spoons from every direction. It's an unnatural, overwhelming amount of the same stimulus. To them, it's not a school of bait fish. It's an invasion. A young, dumb fish might hit it out of pure reaction. But the older, wiser fish you're targeting, they've seen this show before. They'll either shut down completely or move off to find a quieter area. Your lure has become part of the noise, not the solution. Now for the next big reason. The forage base has changed. This is a subtle one that many anglers miss. The primary food source for game fish in a lake is not static. It can change dramatically from year to year. Maybe one year, there was a huge hatch of small perch, so minnow profile baits were king. But this year, due to environmental factors, there might be an explosion of freshwater shrimp, scuds, or insect larvae. The fish, especially perch and crappie, will key in on this new abundant food source. They are looking for tiny, subtle presentations. Your 3-inch long, aggressive, rattling lure that imitates a shiner? It doesn't match the hatch anymore. It's like trying to sell a steak to a vegetarian. You're offering something they simply aren't interested in eating right now. Here's a perfect example of that. Last season, you hammered walleyes on a big, flashy jigging wrap. It was the only thing they would touch, so this year, you tie it on with total confidence. But you're not getting a single bite. Meanwhile, a guy 50 feet away is pulling up fish after fish on a tiny tungsten jig tipped with a wax worm. You might think he's just on a better spot. But the reality could be that the main forage this winter is bloodworms or other small invertebrates living in the sediment. His tiny, subtle presentation is perfectly imitating that food source. Your big, aggressive lure is so far from what they're dialed in on, they don't even register it as food. It's a classic case of fishing a memory instead of fishing the moment. Let's talk about environmental shifts. The lake itself is a living, breathing thing, and it changes. Water clarity is a huge factor. After a season with a lot of rain and runoff, the water might be more stained than usual. In that case, bright, gaudy colors and loud rattles might be necessary for fish to even find your lure. But what if you have a dry year, or an invasive species like zebra mussels clears up the water significantly? Suddenly, the water is crystal clear. Your old go-to fire tiger lure is now obnoxiously bright. It looks unnatural and intimidating to the fish in that clear water. A more subtle, natural-colored lure would be far more effective. Sticking with your old favorite means you're failing to adapt to the new conditions right in front of you. This leads directly to lure visibility and color choice. We get stuck on colors. We think perch love chartreuse or walleye always hit gold. These rules can be true sometimes, but they are not universal laws. In that super clear water we just talked about, a subtle silver or a natural perch pattern will almost always outperform a glowing neon color. The fish can see it from further away, and they have more time to inspect it. If it looks fake, they'll turn away. Conversely, in muddy or stained water, that subtle silver spoon becomes nearly invisible. That's when you need the fire tiger to call them in. The mistake is believing one color is always the answer. The best color changes with the conditions, and if you're only using your one best lure, you're only effective a fraction of the time. There's a concept I call lure education. It's directly tied to fishing pressure. Fish in heavily pressured waters are not the same as fish in a remote, untouched lake. They have seen it all. They've been hooked and released. They've watched their buddies get pulled through the ice. They learn. They associate specific vibrations, colors, and shapes with danger. Your classic lure, the one sold in every bait shop for the last 30 years, is the one they have the most experience with. They've earned a PhD in avoiding it. This is why sometimes a completely new and weird-looking lure, one that doesn't resemble anything they've seen before, can be so effective. It bypasses their learned defenses. It's new, it's different, and it triggers their curiosity instead of their fear. I remember a day on the ice talking to an old-timer. He was a great fisherman, been fishing this lake for 50 years. He was complaining about how the bite had died off. He held up his lure, a classic red and white spoon. He said, "I've caught thousands of fish on this spoon in this very spot. Now nothing." He was frustrated. He blamed the DNR, the weather, everything but the lure. I was trying a new, smaller tungsten jig in a color I'd never used, and I was catching fish. It wasn't because I was a better fisherman. It was because my presentation was something new to them. His legendary spoon had become so familiar to the fish that it was effectively invisible. It was a tough pill for him to swallow, but it was a perfect illustration of lure education in action. Another thing to consider is the evolution of lure technology. Think about the lures that were popular 20 years ago. They were mostly made of lead or steel. They were relatively simple. Today we have lures made from tungsten, which is much denser. This means you can have a much smaller profile for the same weight, allowing you to get down to the fish faster and with more sensitivity. We have UV reactive paints that glow in ways older lures can't. We have hyper-realistic patterns printed directly onto the lure body. The sound signatures are different too. Your old lure might have a high-pitched rattle, while a new one has a subtle, low-frequency thump that fish may find more appealing. Let's compare the sound and feel. An old brass lure has a certain ring to it, a specific vibration. A modern tungsten jig, on the other hand, has a very different feel on the line. It's more compact. It falls faster. When it hits the bottom, it makes a sharp tick instead of a dull thud. These subtle differences matter. Fish use their lateral lines to sense vibrations in the water. They can tell the difference between the wide, lazy wobble of an old spoon and the sharp, aggressive darting of a modern lipless crankbait designed for ice fishing. If the local bait fish are frantic and quick, the modern lure is a better imitation. Your old reliable might be sending the wrong signals entirely. Then you have the problem of online hype. This is fishing pressure on steroids. A popular YouTuber or TV host features a specific lure, calling it the hottest thing on the market. Within 48 hours, every online tackle store is sold out. A week later, every angler on your local lake is using that exact lure. The lure might have been genuinely fantastic when it was new and the fish hadn't seen it before. But its effectiveness plummets as soon as it becomes common. The market gets saturated, and more importantly, the water gets saturated with that one presentation. You're no longer presenting something unique. You're just one of 100 people doing the exact same thing. The fish get conditioned to it almost instantly. This saturation effect creates a short-lived boom and bust cycle for lures. A lure is a killer for one season, or even just a few weeks. Everyone rushes out to buy it. Then the next season, people report that it just stopped working. It's not magic. It's a predictable outcome of intense, concentrated fishing pressure. The fish adapted. They learned to ignore it or fear it. The anglers who succeed long-term are the ones who are one step ahead of this cycle. They're the ones who find the next hot lure before it's popular, or the ones who go back to an old, forgotten lure that the fish haven't seen in a decade. They zig when everyone else zags. Relying on last year's hot lure is often a recipe for failure. This brings us to the biggest trap of all, the psychological one. It's the belief that it worked before, so it has to work again. This mindset makes us incredibly stubborn. When we're not catching fish on our go-to lure, we assume the problem is us. We think we're not jigging it right. We're in the wrong spot. The fish just aren't active. We'll change a dozen other variables before we even consider changing the lure. This is a cognitive bias. We're clinging to past evidence of success and ignoring the present evidence of failure. The most difficult thing to do in fishing is to admit that your favorite, most trusted tool is now the wrong tool for the job. But making that admission is what separates good anglers from great ones. So, how do you break this cycle? I challenge you to try the stranger-in-the-box experiment. Next time you go out, I want you to intentionally pick a lure from your box that you have the least confidence in. Maybe it's one you bought on a whim and never used. Maybe it's one that just looks weird to you. Tie it on and force yourself to use it for 1 full hour. No cheating. Don't switch back to your old faithful after 10 minutes. Commit to that hour. This exercise does 2 things. First, it forces you to try something different. Second, and more importantly, it breaks the mental dependency on your confidence bait. You might be shocked at the results. You might catch nothing, but you'll learn something. Or you might just discover your new go-to lure. This experiment forces you to focus on technique rather than relying on the lure's past reputation. When you have no confidence in a lure, you have to work harder to make it look alive. You pay more attention to your cadence. You watch your flasher more intently for any sign of a reaction. You become a more engaged and observant angler. You start to analyze what the fish want today, not what they wanted last year. You'll experiment with short hops, big rips, and long pauses. You're not just going through the motions. This active, engaged approach is often the real key to success, regardless of what lure is on the end of your line. The stranger lure is just a tool to get you into that focused mindset. Let's perform an autopsy on your old lure. It's time to be objective. Hold it in your hand and analyze it as if you've never seen it before. First, look at its profile. Does it match the size and shape of the primary forage in the lake right now? Second, look at the color. Is it suited for the current water clarity? Is it too bright or too dull? Third, think about its action and sound. Is it an aggressive, loud lure when the fish seem to be in a negative or neutral mood? Does its vibration signature make sense? You need to be brutally honest. If you were a fish, would you eat this today? Or does it scream danger and unnatural? Taking the emotion and nostalgia out of the equation is the first step toward making a smarter choice. Now, this doesn't mean you have to throw your entire old tackle box away. Sometimes, a legend can be reborn with a few simple modifications. This is where a little creativity can pay off big time. Take that old spoon that isn't working. Can you change the hooks? Swapping a standard treble for a single brightly colored hook, or one with a bit of flash, can completely change the presentation. Can you add something to it? Maybe tip it with a minnow head, a wax worm, or even a modern soft plastic. This adds scent and a different, more subtle action that can trigger a strike from a hesitant fish. You're combining the familiar flash of the old lure with a new, enticing element. Think about other modifications. You can add a small spinner blade to a jig. You can take a permanent marker and add new patterns or colors to a spoon. A few black stripes can turn a silver spoon into a passable perch imitation. You can scuff up a shiny lure with sandpaper to give it a duller, more subtle flash for clear water. The goal is to make it different. You're trying to break the pattern that the fish have become conditioned to. You're showing them something that is 90% familiar, but has one new, intriguing element. That little bit of new is often all it takes to convince a wary fish to commit. It's about evolution, not revolution. Finally, we come to the hardest part. Knowing when to retire a legend. Some lures are just a product of their time. They worked wonders during a specific era on a specific body of water. But that era has passed. The conditions have changed, the fishing pressure has increased, and the fish have adapted. It's okay to put that lure away. It doesn't mean it was never great. It just means its job is done. The truly successful angler has a tackle box that is always evolving. They honor the past and the lures that brought them success. But they don't let that past success blind them to the realities of the present. They are always testing, always learning, and always willing to accept that today is a new day, and it might require a new tool for the job. So, let's bring it all together. We've talked about how intense fishing pressure can educate fish, making them shy away from common lures. We've seen how a shifting forage base or a change in water clarity can make your old favorite completely irrelevant. The biggest takeaway, the real plot twist here, isn't that lures die. It's that our own stubborn loyalty and nostalgia are what keep us tied to them long after they've lost their edge. The problem isn't the lure in your box. It's the one you refuse to take out of your box. This realization can fundamentally change your entire approach to fishing. You'll start thinking like a predator again, adapting to the conditions of the day instead of just relying on the memories of yesterday. Thank you so much for watching and for being willing to challenge some old beliefs. If you found this helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that goes beyond the basics. Now I want to hear from you. What is that one old reliable lure in your box that you refuse to give up on, even if you suspect it's not working like it used to? Let me know its name and your story with it in the comments below. I read every single one.